You're listening to the Elevate Your Brand podcast, where we talk to some of the smartest entrepreneurs and fastest growing brands in the market today. I'm your host, Laurel Mintz, a reformed corporate M&A attorney who founded award-winning LA-based marketing agency Elevate My Brand. We've elevated some of the world's biggest brands, from Facebook, Paw Patrol, and Verizon to innovative startups you haven't even heard of yet. Are you ready to elevate your brand? Keep listening. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Elevate Your Brand. I, of course, am your host, Laurel Mintz, and I'm joined today by Karen A. Clark, who is Senior VP of Inclusion Strategies and Business Development Manager at City National Bank, but most importantly, a confidence coach who I met at a women's event, and you just blew my mind, Karen. It's been so great running into you these last few months. Share with our audience a little bit about what you do at City National, but then more importantly, what you do to make significant impact in the world like you did with me.
Thank you, Laurel. And the respect and admiration is mutual, my sister friend. Absolutely. And I'm so glad we stayed connected after we met. But you have that bright spirit, that kind of light that I like to be around. So I'm so happy every time I see you. And
well, the universe brings us
together.
Like, it just energetically brings us together. I think we've run into each other like 3 or 4 times in the last couple of months, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we are aligned. So I am a senior vice president at City National Bank. I have actually been in the financial services industry for almost 40 years. And it's one of those things where a lot of people that work in banks will tell you, that's not what they expressed in the second grade on career day.
You didn't want to be a banker when you grew up?
Right. What do you want to be? Oh, I want to be a banker. But as Richard Davis, who was formerly the CEO at US Bank, and he's now the CEO of Make-A-Wish Foundation. He is one of my favorite corporate CEOs, but he used to say, banking is one of the best jobs you can fall into. He said nobody, wants to do that, but we end up in banking and we get to make dreams come true. And we get to finance educations and businesses and vacation homes. And he just makes it sound so glamorous. So I have been honored to be in this industry for so long, but it's certainly not where I had planned to be. I was a actress, dancer,
You're an
singer,
artist. Yeah.
but I had a backup plan. And wherever you put your attention, so goes your energy. And so my energy, though I was dancing, singing, and acting my way through college, also was focused on getting an economics degree. And when I came to Los Angeles way back in the day, and even now, it's hard to work in the city without a casting agent. And I had 2 little babies, like 3 and 4 years old, because I met my husband in college. We had both of our children before we graduated. And we ended up in LA, where he was from, because he got a job in his field, communications and filmmaking. And I followed along, and I ended up taking my economics degree to a headhunter and getting a job in Wells Fargo Bank in commercial real estate in construction lending. And that was how I have been able to feed my family and have a very successful corporate career. I call myself a corporate queen, but it wasn't always easy. And I call myself a corporate queen because I have navigated this thing. I have navigated, and I have been very blessed and favored. But it all started because I was introduced very early to the concept of understanding who the power structure is, and how being close to and understanding the power structure can get you everywhere if you understand your position. If you understand whether or not you're on offense or defense, and you play your. Yes, I will say some more about that.
So dive into that.
So I was a kid in high school who could never get a summer job. But when I got to college, I got my very first summer job. The first one was pretty easy. It was Department of Education. But between my sophomore in my junior year, I got a job at the wastewater treatment plant in Sacramento. And it turned out I was the very first female that they had ever hired. And I was all of 18 years old. And it paid so well. It was almost $20 an hour. And I'm talking almost, 30 some years ago. And I
Yeah, that's
show up
incredible.
and the guy yeah, that's a lot of money back then, for a summer job for a college student. And so I show up not even knowing what a wastewater treatment, I looked it up, but I'm like, oh, okay. So, I marched over there on day one, and the guy looked up from the desk in the lobby, and he said, "May I help you?" And I said, "Yes, my name at the time, Karen, my maiden name, Bowen. I'm Karen Bowen. I'm here to my first day of work." And he said, "You're a girl." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "We never had a girl here before." And I said, "Oh, well, here I am." And so he was nice enough about it, but he had to go clear out a room that I could change because you had to wear a uniform. It was a city or a county job. And we were it actually was a full service wastewater treatment plant. And he had to make a bathroom for me and signs and all of that kind of thing. And the whole campus, blue collar and white collar males of every size, shape, and form. And you talk about sexual harassment, you talk about being,
Oh
bullied. But
man,
I tell
yeah.
you what, I needed that money. I got thick skin so fast. And I observed and I watched to see who's aligned with who. How does this thing work? Who do I need to be next to in order to protect myself physically, mentally, and all of that? And that was my first sort of introduction to a male dominated industry, job, supervisors, peers, and I learned so quickly. And I actually took the next semester off because they extended the job to me. And I needed that money. I was working my way through school. So I delayed my education by a
With
semester
two
to
kids.
work. Yeah. Well, no, this is
Yeah.
before I had the kids. This is before I
Oh,
had the
before the
kids.
kids. Got it.
Um,
Got it.
yeah, yeah. And so I got through that summer, and made good money enough to, pretty much get through. I had financial aid for the units, but I didn't have financial aid for books, for food, all of that sort of thing. Well, the very next job that I got coming out of my last semester in college, as a matter of fact, because now I did take time off, got those kids, and I was counseling in a drug rehab center in a nonprofit called THEKarenA Effort in Sacramento because I had started as a psych major and switched to economics. But I was doing this counseling and I would counsel probationers who were having to take drug treatment as part of their sentence. And one of the probation officers told me that I should apply for a probation job because it pays so well. And they had a very cutting edge system in Sacramento, juvenile probation. So I applied
Oh
and I got
wow,
a job.
that's a bit of a leap from financial services.
Well, yeah, well, I hadn't entered financial services yet. I was
Oh,
still,
before.
this is all college days, and then immediately following college, I took this probation officer job in juvenile hall. And
Wild.
again, male dominated. And I was put on the 15 to 18-year-old boys ward who were waiting to age out to
Oof.
prison. Again, you talk about thick
Oof.
skin. You talk about,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how do I align myself with the male probation officer so that I could learn, so that I could be protected, so that I could have that camaraderie. And I did it. So now, fast forward, Laurel, we come to Sacramento. I mean, we come to Los Angeles from Sacramento. Everybody's graduated now. My husband comes. I follow, and I take my economics degree to a headhunter and I get a job in commercial real estate construction lending for Wells Fargo Bank. Once again, here I am, male
All fully
dominated.
made male dominated.
Everybody from the developers, the attorneys, the loan officers, the account officers, everybody, and older white male, mostly. And I just learned how to fit in. I learned how to fit in being so often one of the few women in the room, period, one of the youngest people in the room, and a woman of color. And those
Mm-hmm.
three assignments, wastewater treatment plant, the probation officer, prepared me for a conference room in a corporate setting. And I learned so quick and I understood. You have got to know who's in charge. How do you make yourself noticeable for career growth, for personal learning, but also for advocacy, for protection, for somebody who's going to look out for you. And having those experiences, and very quickly, very early in my life, becoming savvy at navigating those corporate boardrooms in what would seem like would be way out of my element, going to investor meetings and having to have the small talk at receptions, and then understanding, the products and the players. I learned that knowledge and relationships are king. They are powerful, and you can
I want to
navigate
double
almost any situation.
Absolutely. I want to double click into that, but let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hello, listeners. Are you ready to revolutionize the way you think about investments in financial markets? Do you want better returns and less risk? Then you need to listen to the new audiobook version of the XX Edge, Unlocking Higher Returns and Lower Risk. Written by previous EYB podcast guest Ruth Shaver, MD, this is not just another finance book. The XX Edge is backed by data and research to showcase the remarkable impact of women's financial decision making. It's an eye-opener revealing a simple but often overlooked investment strategy to earning higher returns. And that is, include women as financial decision makers within your organization or team. With the XX Edge, you'll gain actionable strategies to enhance your portfolio, blending wisdom with groundbreaking insights, and learn how to invest smarter. So why wait? Dive into the XX Edge audiobook today, transform the way you invest, and join a movement reshaping the financial world. Available on Audible. Now back to the episode. Thanks for sticking with us. And if you're just tuning in, I'm chatting with Karen A. Clark, who is the Senior VP of Inclusion Strategies and Business Development at City National Bank, and more importantly, a confidence coach. You told us about your early career and how you were so intentional about understanding who was in the room and who was going to help lift you up and who was going to be an ally, especially being a woman and the youngest person and most likely the only woman of color in those rooms. But how did that happen? Was that just a natural energy and connection? Because you have that same vibe, and that's why you and I have been so energetically connected. But when you say it, it sounds like, oh, it was no big deal. It just kind of happened naturally.
Mm-mm.
How intentional were you about that? And what tips would you give someone else coming up into a similar career?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I was very fortunate, Laurel, because my earliest mentors were my mother and my father. And I always say that my father taught me how to swim with sharks. And I'll tell you what I mean by
Mine
that in
did
a minute.
too.
But my mother also, very courageous, very spirited woman. God bless her soul. She passed in 2012 at the age of 80. No information, no sickness. She just had a heart attack. She was gone 15 minutes later. Praise God. And she
Mm-hmm.
lived her life right up to the end. But she joined the Air Force. She went to the Air Force recruiting office on the day
Whoa.
she turned 18 so that she could get out of the
Wow.
coal mining town where she grew up. She wanted to see the world. And that is how she met my father on an Air Force base in Texas at Lackland Air Force Base. My father, similarly, in a Dust Bowl town in Oklahoma, joined the Air Force. He first tried a couple of other things and unfortunately got his full ride scholarship to Langston University after he was in boot camp, but that's okay
Oh no.
because had he gotten that scholarship, I wouldn't be here, right? So
That's
he goes
true.
to the Air Force, meets my mother, and they had four of us, and we traveled the world. We traveled the world on his business. And my mother, after she did 3 years active duty, she did reserves for probably 20 years. But we traveled the world following after my dad on his different tours of duty, but also because they just loved to travel. So we were always hitting the road, going somewhere. They would save their pennies. We didn't have much money, but they made sure we saw plenty. And oftentimes we were the only Black people, but my mom and dad didn't act like it.
Mm-hmm.
And we never felt out of place, even when we lived in Europe. and long before social media and people could see, the world through a television lens. So again, often even in big city like Frankfurt, we're the only ones, but people treated us very special. We felt very special. It was a different time, I guess. Um, but we felt very special being the only ones. And so there was not a whole lot of fear when I left my house, my parents' house. I left at age 16 to go to go to college, and I worked my way through. I went to the library. I tried to figure out how do I get financial aid. I was the first one in my family. I didn't have a 4.0. I had, I don't know, 3.6 GPA. It wasn't enough to get me scholarships, but I figured that out because my father made sure that I was comfortable no matter where we went. The ski resort, the Frankfurt Opera House. He took me, his junior high school daughter, to San Francisco to see For Color Girls, who considered suicide because he thought it was important for his young
Yeah.
daughter to see, a piece reflected through the eyes of young Black women. My dad is very special. He's 88 years old. I just spent Thanksgiving with him in DC. Still golfs, fishes. But my father taught me how to be confident in who I am as a person, even though I didn't really have a voice to express that until I got to college and had a traumatic experience, but I knew how I was expected to behave from my father. I knew that I had the right to be and to go and to do anything. And so, yeah, it was scary when I got to juvenile hall. And there was only one other woman who was going through training with me, about 7 people that week. And she flunked out in the first couple of days. You could
Oh
see the
no.
fear
Oh
on
no,
her.
the
You could
fear.
see her
Yeah, for
shaking with
sure.
fear. And I said, that's not going to be me. I got tough
Yeah.
skin. That wastewater treatment plant, I'm not giving up that almost $20 an hour. Hell no. I'm going to figure out how to protect myself and get this damn money. And then in commercial real estate, again, I fell into the job, but it was a way to feed my family. And I needed to figure it out. And so I would always hearken to, my father making me know. And the thing about sharks, see, the thing about sharks, people are often afraid of sharks because they think they'll get bit, and you will by some, but not all shark species bite. The thing about sharks, though, that they have in common is they are fast. They can turn on a dime. They can, maneuver so quickly. And that
And
is
always
what I
moving
learned from
forward.
my father, to be able to be flexible, to flow, to move, to turn, to take things as they come and to negotiate them. And so, no, I wasn't fearless, but I just took some of the lessons and some of the fortitude. And that is why I'm so passionate about helping women to understand who they are, because you can't be truly confident until you have something to wrap that around. Now, we all do, but some women, they've forgotten where they've forgotten who they are. They've forgotten that fortitude because they spent so much time just trying to fit into that 9.5 by 11 sheet of paper, which is called a resume, or that eight and a
Hmm.
half, even smaller than that, that is a bio. We try to fit keywords, and we shrink, and we forget all of the things that we have gone through that bring us to this place, because nobody wants to hear about that part. I want to hear about that part. Do you fit the keywords? Do you have, what we've outlined on this piece of paper? Is that on your piece of paper as well? But I'm so passionate, Laurel, because there are so many women. They come to a crossroads. They have an opportunity, but they're fearful, or they're frightened, or they don't think they have what it takes because they have forgotten what it took for them even to get to this point in life. And so that traumatic experience I had in college, I took a theater class, a history of theater class, and I did not read the fine print. I didn't read that you had to actually go up and audition for a play as part of
Oh.
your curriculum. And I was the shyest kid ever growing up. Now, I had all these role models, all my aunties, my mom, my dad. I knew who I was, how to feel, but my voice, I literally felt like if I spoke up, somebody would hear the quivering in my voice. If I stood in front, they'd see my heart beating through my chest. So I joined everything, but I was in the back. I was on every talent show stage, but in the back. I'd be the backup singer. the backup dancer. I was a cheerleader in the back row. I
Hmm.
was on the drill team
Hmm.
in the back row. But I knew what I was supposed to do. And so when I got up to do that audition in college, it was so fearful. It was in the amphitheater. And the audition was not just open to the students in the class, it was open to the community because Sacramento at the time was huge on community theater. They had more community theaters than any other city of its size in the United States. And so here come all these actors. And when the director called you, you had to walk up there. The theater got extremely silent. He would tell you what page to start reading and he would read lines with you. And I said, "Oh my God, I have to go do that? It's about 200 people in there." And when he called my name, here I am, this 17-year-old kid, and I walked up there, all eyes on me. I took the script. I started reading where he told me to, and I don't know how long it was, but next thing I know, I'm hearing, cut, cut, cut. I
Uh-oh.
can't understand a damn word you saying, sugar. Start over
Ooh.
and
Oh.
articulate. Now, this back in the day, he's got his foot up on a cooler, he's smoking a cigarette. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. And I thought in that moment that I had like just died or
Yeah.
dropped through the floor. I mean, I don't know if I lost consciousness.
I'm sure you
I was
did.
so horrified
Mortified.
that he was
Yeah.
screaming at me. And so when I realized I was still standing there and everybody's looking at me, and so I went back to the top and I just wanted to get off that stage. And I read those damn lines as loud as I could and I articulated. And he finally said, cut, thank you. I went back to my seat. And what I realized in that moment is that I hadn't died, that nobody laughed at me, that I was okay. I actually had survived. And then when I went back the next day, you got to go back and see if your name is on a list. We had to go back on Sunday, see if our name was on a list because he was actually casting for 6 1 acts. And lo and behold, I got a part with lines. And 2 semesters later, I was the lead in Tambourines to Glory. It changed everything.
Wow.
It changed me realizing that I
But it didn't
didn't
kill
die,
you.
that I could
Yeah.
survive and speak up literally changed my life. And so I had that by the time I got to the probation officer job, by the time I got to commercial real estate construction lending, I had that
Wow.
experience, which changed my life.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back.
Hi guys, me again. I wanted to take a quick break to tell you more about our award-winning marketing agency, Elevate My Brand. We're a full-service digital and experiential agency, meaning we do it all, from event management to content creation, branding, web design, and social media. We're a small but scrappy team of both data nerds and quirky creatives, and we're here to make you look good. After this episode, let's chat about how we can elevate your brand and take you to the next level.
Thanks for sticking with us, chatting with my friend Karen A. Clark. Karen, hearing the story about your dad and how he put you in the right rooms and gave you those experiences, and then the stage fright that you had to overcome, and the recognition that that's really what made you who you are and made you the stronger, better version of yourself that was already inside of you. How did you take that experience and then launch into helping others understand how to find their voice?
hmm Well, we talk about so I get into the corporate world, Laurel, and I start to figure out and see this whole concept, this formal concept of mentoring. And so I decide, well, I can do that, right? I can do that. And so I just started in every instance that I had, I started mentoring because again, very, very early in my career, I had a couple of great mentors, and there's one in particular. Her name, Regina Chun. We called her Reggie. Chun was her last name. She was an executive vice president at Bank of America. So I get this job in commercial real estate, construction lending, and I'm an officer. And I get nominated for and I get promoted to an assistant vice president, my very first corporate title. And I'm pretty young, pretty excited about it. And this woman who was in our division, commercial real estate, but many layers removed from me, Regina Chun, in headquarters in San Francisco, flew to LA and took me to lunch. And she
Hmm.
said, I came down here to talk to you. She said, because you now have an opportunity to help other women. She said, you're on your way up. She said, I came here as an immigrant at age 4. And she said, once I got into the corporate world, I realized I have to help women because if I don't do it, who will? She said, and in particular, I've got to look out for Chinese women because if I don't do it, who will? She said, now
Mm.
you've got to look out for and help promote women, but you best make sure you are particularly looking out for Black women because if you don't, who will? And she
Yep.
said, and as you do this, you will be questioned. People will think you're playing favorite. So that means you've always got to coach women to be even more than they are so that it's always so above board, so that it's always 200%. And there's no
Hmm.
question of why you're supporting. And I took that to heart. And with that title, I inherited and then got my VP for with 33 women in my division. 33 women. And I made an appointment and sat down with each of them. And I said, tell me, where is it you want to go? What do you want to do? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Because I want to help you. And they would tell me, and I said, but you have to help me. I said, you got to help me make this division, this department a success. And I'm going to make sure you get where you want to go. And that's how it started. That's how it started. And over the years, when I left Bank of America, strangers would call young women. I work at Bank of America, and I understand you don't work here anymore, but so and so told me I really need to meet
They
you.
needed you.
And I just started mentoring women of all ages, but a lot of young women just have come to me over the years. And so, a couple of years ago, it's been almost 2 years now, and I formally launched my coaching business. But before I did, I went through a bunch of classes. You know how we do it when we're getting ready to
You got to have
start something new
all the things
and
under your
really
belt. Yeah.
analyze and evaluate and put together a business plan. And I said, well, what is the magic? Why do women keep coming? Because it's not women will come, oh, I want to start a business. Can you help me? Can you walk me through this? Or I'm going to pitch for a promotion, or I've got a renewal of a contract. So it's different reasons that they come and that they refer to me. But I said, what is it that I'm actually doing with all of them though? Because I'm not a business coach per se. I'm not that sort of thing. And I said, oh my gosh, what I do is I build them up and I help them to understand what it is they have inside of them and how to effectively utilize that so they can launch and execute that thing. It could be anything. But what I have in common is I can take a woman, I can sit down with her and over a period of time help her to get so strong and confident and really and how to sustain that because that comes and goes. You get beat down by the
Absolutely.
end of the week, you know that. But what are
I
the
don't know what you're
tips and the
talking about,
tools?
Karen. I'm always super confident all the time. No, it
Yeah,
just doesn't happen like that.
exactly.
But it's
And
about the
so,
sustainability piece for sure.
yes. And so it's the sustainability piece. And with that, I've begun to build a community. So it's not just me trying to help, but there's a community of women, an intimate community to help build each other up and sustain that throughout, the week. And so, but that's how it began, Laurel.
It's incredible.
Me
I feel
being
like we
helped
needed
and
an
me wanting to
hour.
help others.
I know, same. Well, I pay it forward to whenever anyone reaches out and they want some time with me, especially young women. I always make time to share with them my journey and to give them some of the tips that I've learned along the way as well. I think it is our duty as more seasoned. I'll say that in nice, more seasoned executives in our field to lift others up with our within our communities. So I'm really grateful for the work that you do. I feel like we need an hour. A half an hour is almost up and we haven't even gotten to a lot of the tips and tricks. Can you just close us out with some of the tool, like maybe one key tool that you give some of your clients to help them so that the listeners take away something that's actionable today?
Yeah. Well, One very simple thing is gratitude. I will tell the listeners, no matter how badly you're feeling, no matter how much you think you're stuck or boxed in, remember to have gratitude for even the small things that have come to you, even in the past, because remembering and thinking and having that feeling of gratitude will attract more of that to you. And so, I coach women to just start very simply in the morning. You can do it while you're putting on your makeup, while you're stretching, but start with some self affirmations, being grateful for yourself, for your body showing up for you, being grateful that you can hold something in your hands, that your legs hold you up, that your ankles are working properly, that you woke up in your right mind. Be grateful that you are beautiful, that you are smart, that you are loving. Affirm these things to yourself every day. Start off. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, but you start like that your day. And the way you feel about yourself and what you're feeding your brain
Mm.
will help to lift you throughout the day. And it will attract more of that beautiful feeling and energy to you if you are the one starting it. If you are the one remembering that everything you need is inside of you, but you have to honor it.
I want you to just call me every morning, Karen. Can we just like have a chat every morning for you to do that with me?
Yes,
I do do the
ma'am.
gratitudes in the morning, actually. I do. I have a gratitude journal and I write it every morning because I do think it's how you speak to yourself and that is how you attract the world around you. And I am so very grateful that I somehow attracted you into my energy sphere, Karen, because you are just a rocket ship. I mean, of positivity and connection. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they go ahead and do that?
They can get in touch with me. I'm going to give you a couple of, first of all, I always use the A in my name, Karen A. Clark. You Google Karen A. Clark. For some reason, the 10 million other Karen Clarks don't use the A. You will find me. That is the simplest way. But I also, 213-344-9009, at Karen A. Clark on LinkedIn. And my website is the Karen, www.TheKarenA Confidence Coach.
I
The
love it.
Karen A Confidence Coach. But
Well,
yeah,
we always
Google
wish you
Karen
luck.
A. Clark. I'll come up.
I mean, you have had such a storied career, and your speaking is just so incredible. I've never been more inspired by a speaker. Honestly, um, your music and your spoken word poetry, like there's just so much positive creativity that comes out of you. And I'm just really lucky to have been in the room with you. As we close out, I typically like to do a quick fire, but we're running out of time. So I'm just going to ask you one question. And that question is, what is your favorite word and why? And this could be something that's had real power for you over time or something that just pops into your head for the purpose of this conversation.
Okay, this is so funny you would ask that because for decades, my favorite word has been hustle. I just believe in hustling, but I've changed that. And now it's attract. I don't need to
Mm,
chase because I attract what I need. So I don't have to hustle as much.
mm. I love that.
Attract.
I'm going to embody that energy. Karen, thank you again for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me, and I'll see you soon, Laurel.
You know you will. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Make sure you reach out to Karen if you could use a little extra confidence, which I know we all can. And you're just such a joy. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Stay tuned for more from Elevate Your Brand coming up next.